Part 2, Chapter 15. On the blackboard in Arnold's class the next day were two words, yellow alert. How many of you knew the terrorism alert status today is yellow? Anyone? Kids looked around at one another and smiled nervously. How many of you knew we had a color-coded terrorism alert system? A few hands went up. I know it exists, Brian Mitchell said, but I don't pay attention to it. We're out here in Seattle. Why would al-Qaeda terrorists attack us? Nothing ever happens in the Northwest. You sound disappointed, said a new kid. I'm glad nothing ever happens here, Heather said. I don't want anything bad to happen. What about Rassam? Arnold said. Who's Rassam? Melody Turner asked. Arnold told the story. This guy, Ahmed Rassam, had tried to sneak into Port Angeles on a ferry from Canada right around the new year in 2000. When he was arrested, the police found explosives in the trunk of his car. At first, they thought he was trying to blow up the Space Needle, but it turned out he was headed to Los Angeles to blow up the airport there. I'd never heard of him, and I don't think anybody else in class had either, though a couple of kids pretended they had. Port Angeles is a sleepy little town on the Olympic Peninsula, a totally nowhere place. It was weird to think that some international terrorist had been caught there. For the rest of class, kids talked about terrorists in Iraq and Afghanistan. I looked out the window and thought about my dad. He'd probably know about the job by now. They wouldn't make him wait until the end of the day. When school ended, I walked back to the boat. As I came down the pier, I saw my dad on deck, sitting on the little table smoking a cigarette and drinking from a coffee cup. They're not ready to hire me just yet, he said as soon as I stepped on the boat. It doesn't mean they won't hire me later, though. This just isn't a busy time for bike shops. In the spring, they're almost sure they'll call me back. That makes sense, I said. You've got to keep yourself ready, Dad, for when they call. He held up his cup. There's just coffee in here, Chance. Nothing else. I'm trying. I changed into my running stuff and ran my normal route. There was no package. After I'd showered, I headed back to the boat. The weather had turned windy. A storm was coming. My dad was below deck, and I joined him. I stuck some frozen lasagna in the oven for dinner, and we somehow managed to eat it, even though the boat was heaving back and forth. As the evening wore on, the winds increased, and so did the rocking. It was impossible to read or watch television. I finally climbed into my berth, pulled the blankets up around my neck, and tried to listen to the radio. Outside, pulleys were clanking against the masts of sailboats, making a racket. My dad, who'd been at the table flipping through the newspaper and smoking, stood and stretched. I think I'll go to Little Coney, get something hot to drink, and get off this damn boat. Sounds good. You mind if I come with you? Of course not. I'd like the company. But I wasn't going drinking, if that's what you were worried about. I was afraid Little Coney might be closed, but it wasn't. I ordered a hot chocolate and my dad got a large coffee. Take your time, the guy behind the counter said as he slid the cups to us. My daughter has my car and she won't be here for another hour. Easy. We took a booth in the corner. A Beatles song, Here Comes the Sun, was playing through the speakers. Not likely, my dad said. What? The sun. Not too likely to come. He poured 4 packets of sugar into his coffee, stirred it up, and took a sip. Terrible, but hot, he whispered. How's the chocolate? The same. I looked out the window toward Puget Sound. The wind had whipped up whitecaps. Big clouds were racing across the moonlit sky. It felt great to be warm and snug when outside everything was cold and wild. Anything interesting happen at school, my dad said. It was an ordinary question, but it had been years since he'd asked it. Not really, I said. We talked about terrorism, red alert and yellow alert and stuff like that. I didn't even know we had codes. He shook his head. That color stuff is a load of crap. Nobody pays any attention to it. That's what my teacher said. But he says we should pay attention because Seattle is a target. I paused. What would be worth blowing up around here? My dad rubbed the back of his neck. The Space Needle is what everybody says, and that's probably what the terrorists would hit. But if I were a terrorist, I'd blow up the Ballard locks. The locks, I said? Who would care if the locks were gone? This whole region would care, that's who. Blow up the locks, and Lake Washington and Lake Union would drain right out into Puget Sound. A big stinking mud hole is all that would be left. It would be a disaster for the shipping industry and for tourism. Pick the right day, the opening of boating season, for example, and you'd kill a lot of people too. Or you could blow up the I-5 bridge or attack one of those big cruise ships or blow up a ferry. Puget Sound is just full of soft targets. Do you think anything like that will ever really happen? He pushed his cup away from him. Not really, but you never know. I mean, who would have thought that September 11th would happen? He stayed sober for a week, but when I came home from school the following Thursday, he had a bottle of beer in his hand. Friday afternoon, he wasn't on the boat at all.